So this is Literacy and Numeracy across the curriculum assignment 2. So we'll start off with the strengths of the quiz. So I scored higher in the numeracy section. So for example, these questions show a clear way to achieve an answer. So to be able to answer these questions, I used paper and pen to work them out in a sequential manner. When completing both questions, I worked out each individual section and then added them together to get my answer. The strengths include spelling as well. So spelling is another of my strengths, as I believe that this is a skill that has always been instilled within me from my early childhood, stemming from primary school and well and truly into high school, with many spelling tests and just writing in general. I believe that this is a very important skill as it becomes a building block for writing in general and extends upon the student's vocabulary, which is an important step in writing. Another strength was grammar. So both of these examples show that grammar was a strength. Grammar is important for students to understand, especially as it is a building block for writing, and its use cannot be overlooked by students or teachers, which I feel like was instilled within me from an early age and definitely refined in high school. So some weaknesses. My first was that there was a need to read the question more carefully. So for example, this question I read completely wrong and did not read the without. Instead, I read it as with. This could be because of many reasons. Firstly, it could be that testing causes stress in students. Therefore, this can be related to the classroom, as a teacher needs to be able to prepare their students to their full ability so that they don't get flustered in testing conditions. Another weakness was focusing on the important parts of the question. So this was the only numeracy question that I got wrong, as one of my weaknesses would be percentages, but I also found it difficult to focus on what the question was actually asking without having a hard copy to use a highlighter to highlight the important parts of the question. Therefore, this can correlate to students having reading time before exams and other assessments, which enables students to read the questions before they begin to answer them, which then enables the students to read the questions at least twice before they answer the question. So once in reading time and once when they're actually doing the question. Again, not being able to see all the mistakes may be due to the fact that this was not a hard copy, which could have been easily solved by printing it and then highlighting the incorrect parts of the paragraph. I was still able to acknowledge that there were many mistakes in the paragraph, but I found it difficult to distinguish how many there actually were. So, as a teacher of literacy and numeracy, this test has shown me many things and surprised me in many ways. I didn't think I would get a better mark in the numeracy section than the literacy question, as my main subject is English, followed by history, both of which would be perceived to be literacy-dominant subjects. The Australian curriculum states that students become literate as they develop the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to interpret and use language confidently for learning and communicating in and out of school, and for participating effectively in society. Therefore, literacy is not only for English, but an overarching skill that needs to be and can be used across all of the curriculum. A key component of this is being able to communicate across all disciplines, whether this be written, verbal, or in any other way. Students will often have a preference in this case. However, both skills are important for their schooling, but more specifically, they are important in the real world. For example, students will need to be able to confidently express themselves verbally as well as in a written format when they are going for a job after they complete their schooling, but even midway through high school when many students start to go for part-time jobs. Numeracy, on the other hand, is stated in the Australian curriculum that students become numerate as they develop the knowledge and the skills to use mathematics confidently across other learning areas at school and in their lives more broadly. Therefore, This states explicitly that students need to use numeracy across all areas of their schooling. With confidence being the key word here, apart from a few questions, I never felt uncomfortable or not confident, in my ability to answer the questions placed in front of me. Confidence is key in establishing within students the ability to successfully accomplish what they want to in school. My performance shows me that even though I have a broad knowledge of both literacy and numeracy, I need to research further into both in a more in-depth way. For literacy specifically, I need to further my knowledge of specific terms for different parts of grammar, which just comes with practice. For numeracy specifically, again, what I learn will just come with practice, but just learning more in general, specifically what is needed for my subjects of history and English in particular. For English, a part of this could be to broaden my reading list and to read different types of books, magazines, and so on. It also shows me that confidence is a big thing, that I will always need to encourage my students to have when they are completing tests and the like. This often comes back to the students' comfort when they are completing the test. When I was on my placement, one of my classes, a Year 11 literature class, came to time to complete a SAC, and my mentor teacher was very big on making sure all her students were comfortable when completing the assessment, not only in preparation, but at the time of the assessment too. So, before the assessment began, I went into the classroom to ensure the heating was on, there was enough lighting for students to be able to see, the instructions were on the board so that all students knew what they were doing, and also that there were enough materials for all students, including extra pens in case students forgot. So how this might enhance my discipline areas? To begin with, students need to develop a general capability which in the Australian curriculum refers to enabling young students to develop the knowledge, skills, behaviours and dispositions to enrich their lives in a positive way for them to eventually develop as adults in society who can live and work successfully. This is an important first step for students, which can then be grown upon to focus on aspects of the Australian curriculum, specifically in this case, literacy and numeracy. A major part of what I hope to bring to the classroom is giving students the freedom and ability to formulate their own thoughts, which brings us to inquiry-based learning, which is a process where students have the freedom in their learning to make decisions on their own. They're able to formulate their own questions, investigate widely, and then build new understandings, meanings, and knowledge. I do understand that this may not work for all students, as some will need a little push to complete their work. So, as a teacher, I become a facilitator for students to run their ideas by me, and for me to then guide them into the direction which would make them the most fulfilled and successful in their schooling experience. This would enhance all discipline areas. A few examples of this could be, in my high school, we had a program called Skills, which ran in Year 9 and helped students to gather the skills that would be useful for the real world. For example, we were taught how to write a resume, which very much so encompasses literacy skills, specifically how to write in a formal manner. This is shown in the literacy and numeracy test, as we were tested on our ability to formulate formal grammar usage. Another way this could easily be incorporated into the classroom could be through mock interviews, which would definitely prepare students for the real world. This becomes an informal way and an enjoyable way for students to further their literacy skills. Another example of how I might incorporate this into my classroom of English would be through exposing students to many different types of texts. This helps students to not only use literacy in the classroom, but numeracy too. It is important for students to be accustomed to and have knowledge of mathematical words and phrases so that they can be accustomed to and be successful in all of their classes. This can be taught through exposing students to all types of texts. Students need to be able to formally learn new vocabulary, but this can be done in an informal way, such as students just reading different texts and unknowingly becoming accustomed to such words. Therefore, through doing the testing and discussing how this relates to literacy and numeracy, it has become obvious that the foundations for learning literacy and numeracy are done in a more formal manner. But to extend upon them and to refine these abilities across all disciplines and the curriculum in general, much of this is done informally. through students just being exposed to different ways of learning that they might even find more enjoyable, because who wants to remember something that wasn't a good experience? Therefore, as educators, we need to make school and learning an enjoyable but knowledgeable experience for all students to ensure it is a successful one.